Today, I'm going to show you how to take your photo editing to the next level and edit like a painter. It's me, I'm the painter. I recently started playing around with this new color grading method, and I have made some fantastic images with it, and I want to share the techniques that I use to create them. I worked as a professional photographer for like 6 years before I figured this out, and I was editing my photos. I was doing like crop, color, contrast, retouching, but I was not color grading my images like this. And now that I've gotten comfortable with this new process, my images have improved spectacularly. This helped me get beyond my creative plateau in a way that I did not think was possible. We're gonna call this method color painting, and it doesn't involve any fancy Photoshop actions, nothing super technically complex at all. So if you're new to Photoshop or you're just not that into learning like 20,000 new things today, don't worry, I think you'll like this approach. I'm also gonna do my best to keep it short and sweet here. We're gonna edit 2 photos together today, and by the end of the video, you will be ready to go off and make some magic of your own. If that sounds good, stick around, leave a like, and let's jump right in with photo number 1. Photo number 1. For this technique, we are gonna be using the heal brush tool, the dodge and burn tools, and the color balance layers. Nothing complicated. I have already done a first pass batch edit on the photos in today's video. So I opened them up in Photoshop Camera Raw, which is similar to Lightroom, and I played with the colors, crop, contrast, etc. And I actually did a video forever ago about batch editing, so go and watch that if you want to understand what happened to the image to get it to this point. And now I'm gonna show you the special sauce that you cannot apply in a batch edit. So, first step, always make a copy of the background layer. We are gonna do the retouching first. I'm gonna go in with the heal brush tool and remove any random intrusions, skin imperfections, stray hairs. Once the retouching is done, we're gonna go in with the dodge tool on a new background layer. Try to remember to make a new background layer for every single step. I'm pretty bad about that, but I do my best. And I like to just kind of draw in some of the highlights. I usually start with the eyes just because it's pretty intuitive to brighten the eyes a little bit. Never brighten the whites of the eyes, just the iris. I sometimes do like a little stroke on the eyelid, the bottom of the eyes, just it really helps them pop. It kind of carves the eyes out of the face a little bit. Oh God, that sounds terrible. I can't think of a better way to phrase that, but it doesn't carve the eyes out of the face. Brings the eyes forward a little bit. You gotta be careful not to do too much, but you know, guess and check, guess and check. And once I'm finished with the dodge tool, like for now, I'll probably come back to it, I'm gonna go in with the burn tool. Burn tool is the same as the dodge tool, but opposite, and so I'm going to go over areas of shadow with it. Not all of the shadows, but just the most flattering ones. Under the cheekbones, around the eyes to make the eyes pop out a little bit, really carve them out of the face. Maybe a little bit under the nose, depending on the person's face shape. I like to go in around the eyelids, help use it to accentuate the makeup, maybe dye some of the eyebrows a little bit. I go in between the lips to sort of make the lips look a little bit bigger. I sometimes like to go in around the hairline and around the top of the face, just to give a little bit more dimension to the face, make it look a little bit less flat. And as you can see, the effect is already quite striking. This is where being a painter comes in handy. If you have an idea of how to paint the planes of the face, then you have a good idea of how to highlight and shade them in an image. So now that we are done with the kind of basic edits, we've got the retouch, we've got the highlights and the shadows added, we are going to begin applying the special sauce, which is the color balance layers. So the first thing that I'm gonna edit in this image is gonna be the eyes. So I'm gonna go into my color balance layer and I'm going to kind of play with it until I get the color blue that I want her eyes to be. And then I am going to go to the layer mask and I'm gonna paint it completely black using the paint bucket tool. And then I'm gonna go in with a white paintbrush on the layer mask and just draw in the areas of her eye that I want to show up as that color blue. And I usually do that paintbrush at like 30 to 60% opacity, just so I have a little bit of wiggle room if I want it to be a darker blue or a lighter blue or what have you. Now with that finished, we're gonna do another color balance layer, and this one is gonna be directed at the highlights. So I'm gonna go into the tone section of the color balance layer. I'm gonna set it to highlights. I'm gonna play with the highlights until they look about how I want them to show up in the image. And then I'm going to, again, use the paint bucket tool to dye the clipping mask completely black. I'm gonna get a larger brush tool at 30% opacity now, and I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna paint in that highlight color in the areas that I want to exaggerate. So usually I pick areas where, you know, there's a very bright light hitting. I'll do the planes of the face, I'll do the cheeks, I'll do the forehead. If there's light coming from the side, I'll do the side light. Sometimes I'll do the background a little bit. And now it is time to do midtones. Midtones, same process. Make a new color balance layer, dye it black, go in with a white brush and paint in your midtones. I like to select the subject just because I'm gonna be painting a lot on sort of the sides of the face. I like to do blush in the midtones. I like to do some contouring around the jaw in the midtones. Usually for the midtones, I'll use like a blush color. Makes it look a little bit darker, but still sunnier. If you're working with people who have darker skin tones, I like to go for like more of a magenta. And if you're working with people with very light skin tones, then I go for more of like an orangey color. And I'm just gonna go in there and exaggerate her jawline a little bit around the eyes. I like to go into the lips with the blush color. Pretty much anywhere that would benefit from like a slightly rosy hue, I will go in with the midtones, as well as kind of carving out the face and adding definition to the neck. Okay, we've done highlights, we've done midtones. I think you guys know what comes next. we are going to be doing shadows. Now for the shadows, I like to go in with a color that is opposite to the color I used for the midtones and similar to the color that I used for the highlights. So if the highlights are like more cyan and the midtones are more reddy, then the shadows are going to be more cyan or maybe like a dark blue-green. And this is a technique that's used in painting as well. You've got complementary colors and you're taught to make your brighter colors one color and then your darker colors are the complementary color if you want a really dynamic palette. So for the shadows, again, I'm going to just mask out the person and I'm going to go in and kind of paint that darker color in areas that I think could benefit from being exaggerated a little bit. I like to do the edges of the eyes, right in between the lips, the bottom of the nose, pretty much all the same places that I used the burn tool. And once I'm happy with the shadow colors, like I could leave it here. I usually like to tweak it a little bit more. I'll create a curves layer and tweak the background a little bit. Maybe I'll add some noise to the background, or I can like dodge out maybe a little bit of glow around the person. But this is like the basic formula. Here's the before and the after, so you can see how much of a difference this makes. It looks subtle while you're doing it, but when you actually compare what you started with what you create, you can see that it's worth the extra time. So that is that photo complete. And the total editing time that it actually took me to do this photo was about 20 minutes. Now, obviously this color painting method is not something that I'm doing in bulk because it is so highly individualized for each photo. For an hour-long photo shoot, I will maybe do this to like 2 or 3 photos. So I reserve it for the best of the best. And I charge quite a bit if a client wants more than 2 to 3 final images in this style. I'll usually edit the strongest photo from an editorial shoot this way, and then I will use it as the header image for the client's gallery so that they get a taste for what other photos might look like if they pay for additional editing. And you might be thinking, wow, Yvonne, that presentation looks really professional. And that is thanks to the sponsor of today's video, PicDrop. PicDrop is a photo sharing platform made by photographers for photographers. It makes it easy to upload photos, sort them out, present them beautifully, and share them with clients and creative collaborators. I use PicDrop for all of my editorial photo shoots. They have a full suite of tools that allows me to customize how each gallery looks. I can change the font, the layout, background, header style, and photo shape in order to create custom layouts for each gallery that I deliver. In addition to galleries, you can also sort your photos into collections, pick a few photos from different galleries, and add them to a collection to have everything show up in one place. You can also export the photos in collections to a new gallery, which makes it really easy to quickly curate a portfolio when I'm pitching to a prospective client. For example, if I have a client who wants to hire me for an editorial portrait session, I can go through all of my relevant galleries, pick out a few of my favorite portrait shots by adding them to a collection, and then export that collection to a gallery that I can share with the client. It's fast and simple on my end, and the client gets a custom, curated look at what I have to offer them. This is just one of many features that PicDrop has that make my life as a photographer a lot easier. But go and see for yourself, because you can get 2 months of PicDrop for free by clicking my link in the description below or using code YHansen at sign up. Give it a shot. I think you're gonna love it, and a huge thank you to PicDrop for sponsoring today's video. Okay, here is the final photo that I'm gonna edit for you today. This is a clean and simple white background shot that I took backstage at Vancouver Fashion Week. And I'm gonna show you how this color painting method improves a photo, even when you don't have crazy lighting colors and things like that to work with in frame. Okay, so you remember the first step? First step is retouching. We're gonna go in with the heel brush tool, and I'm just gonna fix some of these random things in the background first. You'll notice that I do kind of a cheap retouching technique. There are more expensive and more time-consuming ways to retouch. If I want my photos retouched that way, I will just pay a retoucher. I don't do like the dodge and burn retouching. It just takes way too long. It's not my job. My job is photographer. If this were actually for like a client, a paying client, and they were paying me like, I don't know, 60 or 70 bucks a photo, then we would definitely hire a professional retoucher to do this properly. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. And we're gonna go in with the dodge tool. For this one, I'm again gonna start with his eyes, dodge that out. If your subject is kind of muscular, it's always nice to add a little bit of a dodge tool to the very cap of the muscles, contouring their natural features. And for this one, because we've got clothing, I'm also gonna go in and do the highlights on the clothing. The more highlights, the better, really, especially when you're working with materials like leather and silk. All right, dodge tool done. Let's go in with the burn tool. I never really burn the shadows. I always just burn the midtones. I find if you burn the shadows, the effect is like a little bit unnatural. You can exaggerate the muscles. And another kind of painter technique is that if an object is 3-dimensional, you won't just have like an area of light and then an area of shadow. You're gonna have an area of light and then an area of shadow and then a little tiny rim of light. I mean, depending on the lighting, of course, but a lot of the time. And that little tiny rim of light, you gotta remember that when you're getting in there with your shadows, and make sure that you're dodging the little tiny rim, burning the shadow, and then dodging the top. It makes things look a lot more 3-dimensional and a lot more dynamic. Okay, another use for the burn tool is going in and darkening up hair, making hair look a lot glossier. You can burn a little bit at the roots and then dodge at the highlights, and it just gives it a much more robust feeling. Okay, now that we are finished with our dodging and our burning, or at least for now, we're gonna go in with the first color balance layer. And for this one, I don't really think that I'm going to exaggerate his eye color too much, so I'm just gonna start right off the bat with highlights. I almost always choose some kind of cyan magenta combination for the highlights. I don't know, I think it's just my personal style, but I think it looks really cool. Boom, boom, that looks great. Let's go in with the midtones. And same as the last one, we're just gonna do that kind of like eyelid area a bit. We're gonna do the jaw and cheeks, carve out some areas of shadow here with the midtones. We're gonna give a little bit of a fleshy look. Because we chose quite a blue highlight color, the orange of the midtones really helps to make it a little bit more natural feeling while still maintaining that dynamic look. I also like to use this if there's red on the garment and I've got like the red mid-tone color. I'll go in and just enhance the red on the garment. Okay, now that we're done highlights and midtones, final touch, we'll do shadows. So for midtones, we went quite red, quite orange. We like really warmed that image up. And so for shadows, we're gonna go like a jewel tone green-blue shadow. When you are learning about how to apply color, I definitely recommend watching some like painting tutorials, especially like oil painting, because it's gonna be a lot of the same techniques. Oils are very thin, they give you a really transparent color, and that's exactly what you're working with these color balance layers. All right, yeah, I think we're looking pretty dynamic. I might go in and do a few more kind of dodge touch-ups, but I think that that is a good place to leave it because that is the end of the color painting method. So there's the after, boom, and there's the before. You can see that it looks really subtle while you're doing it, but then when you compare it with the original, the result is really high impact. You are building up layers of color in your image, similar to how a painter builds up layers of color on a canvas, and the result is very three-dimensional. You get this really unique treatment of color that would not be possible if you were just slapping on Lightroom edits and calling it finished. I did that for years, like I said, and now I will not post a photo on my Instagram if I haven't given it at least a little bit of this treatment, just because the result is so much better than my photos were before. That is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. I'm trying out some shorter, more informal videos. I love making the long form content, but it hasn't been doing very well. The algorithm does not like my long form content. I'm gonna try and get videos out more frequently. I'm gonna try and do shorter videos more frequently. That's gonna start in June because I'm gonna be away for most of May. I'm gonna be in Hong Kong and Beijing and Shanghai and Kyoto, and I will probably have lots of film photography related content to share with you when I return. So stay tuned. I will see you guys then. And in the meantime, I want you guys to stay sharp and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye guys.